If you have been watching the news lately, you have probably heard a lot of talk about a stabilizing economy. The headlines are pointing to a cooling inflation and a stock market that refuses to quit. But there is a massive, dangerous gap between the headline economy and the one you're living in. This morning, we are tracking three major shifts that are quietly rewriting the rules for your wallet. A housing market that is essentially frozen for the middle class, a job market where the only real growth is in government fund rolls, and a new wave of state level hitting costs that are eating your paycheck before you even see it. I've been away for a moment, but the data didn't stop moving. It accelerated. So today we're peeling back the layers on the 2026 reality that the official reports are trying to smooth over. We aren't just talking about a slowdown anymore. We are looking at the system where the bottom 80% is being squeezed to support the top 20%. So let's get into the numbers they aren't showing you. Let's start with the housing market. The big headline this week is that the mortgage rates have finally dipped towards the 6%. On paper, that sounds like a win. But here's the data they aren't emphasizing. Inventory is still 20% lower than it was pre-pandemic, and homeowners are staying in their house of an average of 8.5 years, a 25-year record. While rates are down, median list prices are still at all-time highs. But look at this chart. Total mortgage delinquencies have hit the 4.26%, but the real canary in the coal mine is the FHA market, the loans used by the most first-time and the middle-class buyers. FHA delinquencies have skyrocketed to 11.52%. That is the highest level we have seen since mid-2021. This isn't just a reporting fluke. It's a signal that the people who bought into the market at the peak are starting to break. Here's the reality. A 6% interest rate is only good if you didn't spend the last 3 years watching home prices skyrocket by 30%. The government is celebrating in a minor dip in rates, but they are ignoring the fact that the total cost of homeownership has hit a breaking point. They talk about affordability improving because the required income for a median home dropped slightly. But ask yourself, how many families actually saw their wages jump enough to cover $500,000 starting home? They aren't doing enough to address the supply crisis. Instead, they're just hoping that the slightly cheaper loans will distract you from the fact that 1 in 10 middle-class borrowers is already underwater. We are witnessing a K-shaped housing market, where the wealthy are trading up and the rest of us are just trying to keep the lights on in homes where we cannot even afford to live. The foundation is cracking and the Fed is still pretending the floor is solid. Now let's look at your paycheck. The latest job data show an upside surprise of 130,000 new roles. But when you look at the DNA of those jobs, the picture changes instantly. Nearly 125,000 of those jobs were in healthcare and social systems, sectors largely driven by government spending. Meanwhile, the private sector is in a literal deep freeze. Professionally and business service shed 57,000 jobs last month alone. Manufacturing has been losing position for nearly 2 years. We are currently in a low hire, low fire environment where employers are too scared to grow, but too lean to cut. This strong labor market is a statistical trick. If you strip away the jobs fund by your own tax dollars, the American private engine is idling in the driveway. We are being told that the unemployment is low, but they don't mention that the labor force growth has stalled because people have simply given up. This isn't economic resilience. It's a hiring desert. You have zero leverage for a raise because your boss knows you have nowhere else to go. The government is propping up the employment numbers with bureaucracy while the real producers in this country are being told to be grateful for a tiny wage increase that doesn't even cover the rising insurance premiums. It's a stagnation trap, plain and simple. Finally, let's talk about the costs you can escape: estate taxes and utilities. As we move further in 2026, the hidden tax man is making a move. Property taxes across the US are now rising faster than inflation, with the average homeowner paying over $4,400 a year. In states like Maryland and Delaware, we've seen double-digit jumps just this year. But even if you don't live in a high-tax state, your utilities are the new front line. Right here in Florida, FPL and Duke Energy have already moved to adjust rates for the 2026-2029 cycle. While they claim to keep bills low, the reality is that the average Florida electricity bill is now hovering around $277 a month. Nationally, electricity prices are outpacing the consumer price index, rising 3.7%, while the rest of the baskets only rose 2.7%. This is the part of the death loop that hits the hardest while Washington argues over macro numbers. Your local and state governments are quietly reaching into your pocket to fix their own budget gaps. They call this adjustment or infrastructure fees. But to you, it's just less money for your family. There is nothing normal about utility bills rising 3 times faster than your paycheck. The systemic overreach hasn't stopped. It has just moved from the federal level to your doorstep. They aren't doing enough to lower your costs of living because they are too busy financing a level of government that we can no longer afford. Every time you flip a light switch or renew your tags, you're paying the price for a system that has completely lost its sense of reality. You're being nickel and dime into poverty, and they're calling it growth. The signals are clear. We are in a period of forced stability, where the numbers look okay on a spreadsheet, but the actual pressure on your household is reaching a boiling point. Whether it's the 11% delinquency rate in housing or the 10% hike in your power bills, the squeeze is real. If you want the data-driven truth that doesn't follow the mainstream script, make sure you subscribe to Wallet Watch USA. We're tracking the numbers so you can protect your wallet. Leave a comment below. Is your local utility bill or property tax hitting a new record this month? Let's talk about it. I'll see you in the next report. Thank you for watching.